welcome to Sound Advice. I am Game Goth, and this is Alex, an encyclopedia of sonic mayhem. Would you agree with that characterization?
I would more say an encyclopedia of useless information.
We are going to be, Alex has prepared for us 4 songs, and what was the theme of today's selection?
So I would say the theme was kind of Los Angeles-based death rock bands from a very specific area of the 1980s that greatly, intensely influenced goth aesthetic and goth culture to come. I think there was a lot of influence that radiated out from here with these particular bands, which were reaction to sort of punk rock, to hardcore. Although these bands were essentially, some of them at their inception, they were hardcore bands and they had members who played hardcore punk. But these members kind of got a little bored with hardcore punk and wanted to sort of do something that was self-consciously weird and would piss off the punk rockers, essentially. So we're going to begin our sonic journey of sonic mayhem with 45 Grave, and they're a band from here in Los Angeles, and the song is called Black Cross. So what you're hearing right now, I'll let it play for a second. I mean, it sounds a lot like hardcore punk, I believe. Am I right?
Sure, yes.
I mean, it's fast, it's loud, it's powerful.
very compressed.
Yes, it's compressed, for sure.
I mean, I don't mean the sound quality, I mean the energy. It's a lot of energy packed into a short amount of time. Although I believe there is a 7-inch of the song that you can listen to that's 7 minutes. I opted for the shorter version.
Okay, yeah, so I think this version of the song is the original version, played by the original lineup of this band.
Who's the lead singer we're listening to right now?
The brilliantly named Dinah Cancer. That's her name, Dinah Cancer. That's, of course, her name that she bestowed upon herself. Interesting thing about this band is that it's all these luminaries from, it's like a supergroup of these Pasadena weirdos, basically, who are associated with like an experimental group of musicians up there in Pasadena, which is a city in Los Angeles County, right before you sort of go into the Angeles National Forest, I think. For anyone who doesn't know. It's fancy now, but it used to sort of be a bohemian hideout, sort of place. And
where all the weirdos congregated.
The weirdos congregated in Pasadena. Now it's now a giant outdoor mall, essentially. One of those places that sort of got real just fancy. It was always pretty fancy. I mean, there's mansions there. Anyway.
I am partial to malls, so I can't be entirely...
But the outdoor ones, man, they're kind of a bummer. But then again, I'm just sort of showing my age, I screw up going to indoor malls. I want to be indoors. So anyway, this band formed up there, basically, and it's made of members of a band called The Germs. 2 members of The Germs. We're talking about the drummer and the guitarist.
I know The Germs.
You know The Germs. Many people would know The Germs. They're primal, incredible hardcore punk band, also from Los Angeles. So you have half of The Germs, essentially, definitely, and then you have this guy Paul Cutler, who's a guitar player from a band from Phoenix, Arizona, called The Consumers, who I never really listened to much of, but they were also playing hardcore punk rock. They were the first punk band in Phoenix, some say. They moved to LA, moved up to Pasadena. Paul Cutler started this band with Don Bowles, the drummer of The Germs, and Pat Smear, the guitarist of The Germs. And you got a bass player and the singer, Dinah Cancer, and this is what they came up with. So it's hardcore punk, but it's completely it's mutilated, so it's bizarre,
Yes.
It's scary, it's evil, it's extreme, it's more extreme than hardcore punk, but this is a fundamental death rock song.
Would you say that the song is over, but we're going to continue talking for a moment, so don't start the next song yet. Would you say that their influence on goth culture, could you characterize it as simply as sound or style, like what they were wearing, or is it more amorphous than that?
Well, what they evolved into became kind of both. They became a more heavy band and a lot of people will say that they lost what made them interesting in that process, and I am
their old stuff was better.
Way better, I think.
Sure.
You know, and it's because it sounds like that. It's intense. It's insane. A lot of it sounds like that. There are also songs on the album that sound more like Alice Cooper songs. And the album I'm speaking of, which I think might be relevant to your question, is this one. This is a collection of stuff that they recorded in 1981 to 1982. Absolutely. Just
ring light.
Oh yeah. And I mean, shit. Flip it over and show them the back of the record too. This was their whole sort of aesthetic, which was sort of created as a joke, again, as a reaction to the sort of the punk rock rules that developed. Although it sounds very like punk rock, you know, without question. But
Well, let's move on to the next song. Before we do, I'm going to grab a different pair of headphones. And we're back. Okay, what's the next song in the list, Alex?
So the next song is, it's called Dream for Mother.
Hold on, don't play it yet. Oh, that's an ad. Okay,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's called Dream for Mother by a band called Christian Death.
Christian Death. What can you tell us about this band off the get-go?
So I can tell you a little
From the get-go.
From the get-go, I can tell you that they were formed in Pomona, which is, you know, interesting in the sense that it's not Los Angeles. It's in Los Angeles County. It's sort of near the bleeding eastern edge of Los Angeles County, so you're getting into the Inland Empire, which is very suburban in the early 80s, you know, just extreme suburbia. You know, it is
So not the heart of Los Angeles, but the scarred wrist.
Yeah.
That was a bad suicide joke.
I think that's a good suicide. I think that's actually an accurate descriptor. Probably most people would agree with you with about the parts of the Inland Empire, and you know, the Inland Empire gets a bad rap, but amazing bands have come from there. Amazing people. I mean, obviously, it's a fantastic place. It's its own kind of fucked up fuck world, just like Los Angeles.
So that's where they come from.
This is where they come from. 3 members of the band formed this band out there, originally calling themselves the Upsetters, I believe, which was also a reggae group, I think, in was it Lee Perry and the Upsetters? Lee Scratch Perry and the Upsetters, yeah, down in Jamaica.
Did they change it?
It was W.
Did they change it after knowing that? Did that incite the change, or was it?
Could have been part of it. I think that would have been a wise decision if they found out, and maybe they did. And also, Christian Death just occurred to them, as far as I can tell, as a band name. And
I quickly want to point out, if we can take a moment just to listen to, Roz is the name of the lead singer, yes?
yeah, Roz Williams.
Listening to his lyrics, the way he sings, just... This to me is the kind of the quintessential goth caricature that gets made fun of often.
Yeah.
I would call it a very whiny sound.
It's a bit grating, and it's off-putting again. So the music itself is psychedelic, fascinating, still yet unapproachable, still punk rock. It's a lot at once, but then you have Roz Williams sort of caterwauling on top of it, and it takes some getting used to, I would say, but like a nice cup of coffee or a fine wine, once you get stoned enough to sort of appreciate it, I guess, you really sort of embrace it and really enjoy it.
You also don't have to do drugs to appreciate music.
No, but it helps, you know. I mean, certain drugs, not the bad ones. I mean, you know, if we're talking about drugs, I don't know.
I won't condone using substances.
I won't condone substance use either, but I will say with certainty that every single one of these bands was involved in eating acid. And, you know, that may have had a lot to do with what they were doing, and it may not have. I guess you could sort of look at it either way. My instinct is that it did, but that's neither here nor there. But I think there's an inherent psychedelia to this punk rock that means that you can sort of hear that. You can hear that sort of. I mean, it's part of the culture at the time, you know.
Sure. What do you think that this subculture? What has this evolved into today?
You mean sort of the people in general. I think it's evolved into metal, and that's sort of an interesting thing about a band like, you know, the bands that we just
like a band in 2021.
A band in 2021 would sort of be incorporating this aesthetic into their sound with a certain degree of maybe self-awareness, where they're also sort of they're mixing genres at this point in a way that is fascinating and fun.
But can you name any?
I think that's a good question, and me being the sort of old fogey I am, who does nothing but discover old music and is lucky to discover a new band, I can't readily pick one out of my mind. But But you know, they're out there, and this band is one of those cult bands. Christian Death's a cult band. What I was going to say about metal is that a lot of people sort of define this music, that the song we just heard, as metal, and it's interesting to think of it as metal. You look at the album cover though, and I should show you that because I do have that record right here. Sorry,
it's okay.
It's a little.
People are probably you're probably also seeing the thumbnail.
Yes. Oh yeah. So I guess this isn't necessarily necessary, but I think you know
we should definitely show the back of the album.
But yeah, but the cover, it's very they're sort of defining black metal and death metal culture in a way, because they've got this really sort of disturbed imagery on the cover that is that's hard to read. The lyrics, or I'm sorry, the band name and the album title are hand drawn. And that's very popular these days.
And you said that the guitarist Rick Agnew went on to form, or was a part of the Adolescents.
The Adolescents was Rick Agnew's band before Christian Death, and he's another person who just got kind of sick.
Wait, Adolescents was before Christian Death?
Yeah, predates Christian Death.
I thought it was after.
He left Adolescents. He was down in the South Bay, Los Angeles County band, and went and joined Christian Death. They officially formed with him in Los Angeles, and they were playing.
Did he ever go back to the Adolescents?
He might have played with them again. He had a few. He was also in DI and did a solo album. He's another one who I absolutely adore the guitar. He wrote almost all the songs on this record, and
he wrote the music, not the lyrics.
Yeah, wrote the music, exactly. So he would come up with the songs, the crazy guitar parts and everything, and then Roz Williams would write around that. Great combination of creative energy there, the two of them, and the rest of the members obviously too.
Well, let's move on to the next song you have lined up.
All right, sounds like a plan. Let's see, what is the next song? Game Goth.
I believe it's a Voodoo Church song.
It's Voodoo Church. Rest in peace. So,
are they all dead? I don't know.
That's a good question. I'm not sure.
Oh, the name of the song is Rest in Peace.
Yes, Rest in Peace.
That's why you said that.
But really, may they rest in peace. Yeah. It's going to take a moment to start because it is.
It has a build-up.
Yes. Straight off of the original 10-inch, I believe, vinyl record too. So it sounds extra analog.
Same year as the other songs?
Sorry.
Same year as the other songs?
Yeah, so let's talk about yours. That's a great question, Game Goth. Can I just call you Game Goth, or how do I address you?
Game Goth, yes.
Alright. That's what I was hoping you'd say.
What else would you call me?
I don't know. I don't know you from Adam, so to say. But I do trust you. I think, so... Wait, what was the question? I'm sorry.
Oh, the year that... I'm asking this... Because I believe you had mentioned that the order in which we are listening to these songs is the order in which they were released.
Thank you for asking. Yes, thank you.
But just generally...
So much to say.
Generally, did this come out near when those other songs have come out?
Absolutely. The interesting thing about this music is that it's... If you took 1 year out of the 1980s and you wanted to say that was the year for death rock, and in many ways for the birth and the widespread popularity to come of Dots, it would be 1982.
I want to speak more because I feel like as we do more of these, I know I've listened to some of your music collection, and we might listen to songs that people would say this all could go under this umbrella. But I want to pick out the specifics of death rock.
Yeah,
the main through line for all these is death rock, and how would you characterize death rock?
What the fuck is death rock, right?
What is death rock?
What is it? It is very hard to describe in a way that is sort of relatable, I guess, because it's punk rock music that's been darkened, that's been blackened, that's been sort of
crisped around the edges.
It has been, yeah. It's been it's Cajun style punk rock.
Are there any Creole punk bands?
That's a really good question too.
I would love to hear a punk band with the Creole, the Cajun.
There's one I can think of right off the top of my head, and they are a Creole punk band in that they're from Louisiana, but they're not.
They don't sound that way.
They do though, because they're a band called The Residents, and if you look them up, they got started in 1974, and they were just freaks, weirdos, crazy art, like avant-garde artists.
Well, we'll do that. Maybe we'll check them out for another series. But let's stick with you were saying about what death rock is. And you were saying it's darkened, it's punk, But it's dark.
It's punk you want to listen to in a graveyard, for Christ's sakes. You know, it's very like when you're just feeling your oats, when you're feeling your angst, but you don't want to necessarily go cry about it. You just want to go give the finger to the world. But you also want to dress all in black, maybe slap some fucking pancake makeup on your face, just, say fuck the world and hang out in a graveyard and listen to punk rock. And maybe, do a little drinking, have a cigarette, whatever, ease your troubles by listening to punk rock and connecting with your sort of silly, dark feelings.
Yeah, they say that misery loves company. I mean, I wouldn't characterize this music as entirely miserable.
Don't you find it upbeat though? I find it very upbeat and ultimately inspiring.
I do as well.
But it strikes you.
Is this upbeat to you?
Does this strike you as depressing? And if so, what is it about the tonality and the timbre of it and the thematic sort of? I want to know. I'm curious to know what makes people find it depressing, because I find it so escapist and uplifting and enjoyable but my head's all totally fucked. I mean, I listen to garbage music as a general sort of routine. So it's skewed up here. I love burning my computer, musically speaking and otherwise. But in any case, a lot of people hear this music and they're like, damn, this is like suicide music. And it is, and I get that. But like, what makes it sound unpleasant if you find it unpleasant, or if you find it sad? Why does it make you sad? Because I don't like sad music. Paulo can tell you, I avoid sad music like the plague, and it always makes me angry when I listen to it. This music makes me happy. It makes me feel like I can escape.
Trust me, I understand.
Okay. You would, yeah. You know what's up.
But and I want to take this moment to clear up, in case it isn't already maybe clear to you, that goths aren't inherently sad.
Cheers to that.
Cheers to that.
I think it's important that be said, because to me, like all these sort of original goths that we're listening to, not a single one of them sounds sad at all. They just sound fucked up and interesting and artsy and pissed off.
Oh, I'm sure they had their days.
Oh, definitely. I mean, Roz Williams, the lead singer of Christian Death, he did take his own life in an apartment in West Hollywood. He hanged himself in the late 90s, and that was a big loss. It's sad, it sucks. The guy had made it that far, but, couldn't make it any further. He suffered with depression his whole life, and this was his outlet, his band.
I saw a video of one of their live performances, and right before one of the songs began, two ladies kissed him. And in spite of having this access to sexual pleasure, he still was sad enough to end his existence. So even when you have attained things that you think will make you happy, depression can unfortunately strip away any positive emotion you might have and make your life hollow. So
Very true.
If you're dealing with any of that, please seek help.
Yeah, when it's impossible to feel good, go get help.
Yes.
Go get the help you need. And don't end up like Roz Williams. The interesting thing about Roz Williams being kissed by two women during a show is like, dude was bisexual, more on the end of gay. And that was another thing about death rock that I love, being gay myself. I find it, a lot of these artists were just openly, flamboyantly, and like middle finger wise. They were just like, fuck you, I'm gay, this is what I do. And they weren't afraid to shove it in people's faces on stage while performing with these bands. And that's the interesting thing about death rock, making this area where goth and punk meet. And it was very important for that sort of like catalysm to happen. And
what was happening politically in the country during this time?
This was the Reagan era, so it was the right wing, and it was the ascendancy.
Was this the moral majority?
Yeah, exactly.
Who was the name of the pastor or the religious leader who ended up being? There were very some unscrupulous. I don't know if I'm using that word correctly. Some things were found out about him that were totally hypocritical.
Jim and Tammy Faye Baker?
No, not those two.
Okay, they were televangelists, I guess.
Right.
Jerry Falwell.
Jerry Falwell. Thank you, Paulo, from the back of the room. Let's move on then.
All right.
Last song.
So the last song is by a band called Kommunity FK.
And this was a last-minute addition.
Yeah, I realized I had missed this one, and we had to have this number for it. This was 1983, so this is a year later. The last three songs you heard were recorded in 81 or 82 and released in 82. And 82 was the year for this, and reaction against Christianity suddenly ascending into the public space because of right-wing Reaganism and.
And this also predated the Satanic Panic of the 90s.
You know, it did. And, there were satanic panics that started in the 80s. That's really when the momentum started building. But I think you're right in the sense that it was a few years to come.
Sure.
I think it was the mid-80s where you really started to see that hit the mainstream. And, you had accusations down in Huntington Beach it was that, it's Huntington Beach of crazy child sex rings and things like that were never in preschools that were never actually proven. And, a lot of interesting things were happening.
A lot of what we're seeing now, actually.
Yeah, a lot of with Pizzagate.
Mm-hmm, yes.
This is a wonderful little backwards tape intro thing. Very fun. And it actually goes throughout the entire duration of the song.
Interesting.
This is like a little bit of an anthem that I absolutely love. But you got that guitar, that pick scrape you just heard? That guitar stuff, that sort of tortured guitar sound, sort of uncertain, bass riffing, chord progressions, sense of anxiety, but yet a sense of sort of tripped out joy to it. It's just mutated punk rock in a way, post-punk. This song sounds very much like a post-punk song, but there's something very weird about the way he's singing.
Can you tell us anything about the members of this band?
I can't tell you much. It was founded by a guy named Patrick Mata, and this is I don't have their. I don't have any vinyl. I don't have any vinyls by them, but I do have this CD, which was reissued in the 1990s. Yeah, 1994. This was reissued. It originally came out on vinyl in 1983. So this was another LA band, Hollywood-based death rock band. That were sort of on another trip, and it's a little bit more psychedelic.
What does the FK stand for?
It stands for fuck. So they went to call their band Kommunity FK, but of course they decided just shorten it to Kommunity FK. This picture is unfortunately rather, as was popular in the 90s, sort of like filtered horribly through Photoshop, but you can kind of still see what they look like.
I believe I've used this effect before myself.
Who hasn't? And that's what they look like. So, again, you can see the style.
It looks grainy like this.
Yeah. It's grainy, it's sort of
Just kidding, it was the effect, you just said that.
But still, you see this and it's grainy. It looks like it's been done into concrete, and then pictures been taken into concrete. It's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
But also extraordinarily stupid. I'm also with stone, so, I'm seeing things there. But, this is very new wavy sort of style. You got, check that hair out on this chick. I mean, it's like bleach blonde and it's all super spiky, super, sort of, angular. And
is that her we're hearing right now?
That, I think is that, what is that? It could be.
Is she the drummer?
It sounds like a sample, though.
No, he's the drummer in the middle.
Yeah, the guy in the middle is the drummer. I'm trying to get... There's nothing in here that says their names. I only know that Patrick Mata is the lead singer, and I believe he played guitar too. But I don't know the names of the two other members, and that's my bad. But they're just sort of one of those bands that put out one amazing record, put out a couple more interesting ones too. But like Christian Death and really 45 Grave and Voodoo Church only put out one record. Their best work is confined to a single album, which is very convenient, in my opinion. It's very convenient too, because then you can just go find those albums, and I would recommend, in the case of 45 Grave, that everybody pick up, Autopsy, and you can find this on cassette, tape, and CD, but it's super expensive, so just download it or whatever. Christian Death, or listen to it on YouTube, or wherever you can, whatever your drug of choice is. Christian Death's Only Theater of Pain. Voodoo Church has only one EP, and it's called Voodoo Church, and then Kommunity FK, The Vision and the Voice.
So, any final thoughts on anything to wrap it up?
Well, I guess,
But I feel like I should have a better question for you.
I know, that's fine. Here's what I would say. Don't think you know what goth is, because you might not, and I don't even know what it is. This dude looks like he knows what it is. But does it
Maybe
really?
I don't.
Maybe he doesn't. Maybe it doesn't mean anything. It's more a state of mind.
It doesn't matter. Well, Alex, thank you so much for putting together this melodic flight, if you will.
Absolutely.
Of music.
Wonderful.
And so maybe after having tasted this has excited your musical taste buds, or maybe you need a palate cleanser. Either way, this has been Sound Advice. Jerry Falwell. All is written as a note. Jerry Falwell Jr. and wife had sexual relationship with a pool boy.
From 2012 to 2018.
Wow.
Wow, you were absolutely right. Who knew? I didn't.
It was the son. It was the son.
Oh, it was the son. All right, so Jerry Falwell, Papa Jerry, Zaddy's Jerry. He never got caught, basically.
Thank you for finding that at the last moment.
Yeah, thanks.
The cherry on top.
Yes, the cherry, if you will.
Cherry on top.
The cherry on top.
Thank you, Paulo. So long.
Take care.